Everybody, you have to a little bit close to you. 4:30 on the iPad time. Oh, sure.
Yeah, because we were wondering what would happen to you sometimes. You'd start with us. Oh, but because these mics are all live. Yeah.
So, what are you're saying? You're not going to talk, you're not turning on. Oh, okay. Okay.
But what happens when the...
Right. Yes, we're going to when we start.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody's paying attention to us. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you go to YouTube, you'll see how many people actually watch the dang thing. Yeah. But they're just watching.
Okay. So.
Probably right. But you're in the room.
No, thank you. That's good feedback. So what we'll do is, when you're going to speak, turn your mic on. Okay?
Oh.
That'll help, I guess, with everybody else. Okay, we're ready? No. Turn them off until you're going to talk, and that'll be fine. No,
well, it doesn't cause the feedback on the YouTube, only on the Zoom. YouTube comes across nice.
Okay.
Come on, face ID again.
This is a
Amen.
Call to order. This is a meeting of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. This is a working session for Guam Waterworks Authority. And for the record, those present are myself, Commissioner Chaco, Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Santos, and Commissioner Gutherds. Everybody's here. And with that, Miguel, the floor is yours.
Three issues for decision that we're presenting to you today. The fourth one that's listed on your agenda, we're going to table. We tried to get it in, but we couldn't get it complete for this work session, so we're going to wait until the next month's meeting. The first one is Resolution 28 FY 2020, and this is relative to an amendment we're seeking for the IDIQ contract for project and construction management services. This is with Brown and Co. There was a previous amendment issued. If you recall, we have the first task order under that IDIQ contract was for the consulting engineers report to support the bond issuance. The last resolution or the last amendment we came to you for, Resolution 21 FY 2020, we also included authorization to conduct the cost of service rate design study that was required to use rate order. However, the contingency for that amount did not get included in the total contract amount under that amendment. So with this amendment, we're adding that in. And then there are three other ongoing tasks under the IDIQ, task orders 2, 3, 4, which involve the Route 1 Asan Avenue Agatnia Sewer Line Rehabilitation Project. The second phase of that is going to be issued bid, and so we want to keep the project and construction management team working on the second phase of amendment to support that work. And then the Route 4 project in Agana, one long between O'Brien Drive and Loop. That work has been delayed. Is going to take us probably through the end of the summer, and so we need a little additional funds to cover that. And the last one is for the Southern SSCS project, which is sewer line replacement, for which the contractor on their own dime needed to correct the problem in the sewer line that runs through wetlands that was previously CIPP line, and it failed, and so the fix is construction of a pump station to bypass that. Currently is in design and permitting. Contractor paying for that, but we need construction management amendment to that task order. So the total amounts that we're looking for Route 4 task is $48,000. take us to the end of the. And then for the Route 1 task order, work phase 2 of that CIPP project is $266,000, and for the Southern SSES task order, an additional $87,000. $45,000 agency. Total authorized funding amount will be $1.742 million. Source of funding, all of the task orders, 2, 3, and 4 work, the SRF grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when you title it amendment, are these just new task orders issued on the IDIQ, or are you actually amending an existing task order?
Amending an existing task.
Okay, and the task order amendments, are they a material change in the scope of work for the task order, or are they just?
Same scope of work, just an extended time period.
But it doesn't materially change the solicitation and what was awarded. It's still within that scope.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Costs because the project gets extended, but not necessarily the construction costs from the contract. Would that be accurate? I mean, I know it'll vary by project.
This is only for construction management,
Right,
the professional
right.
services.
Because as
side.
it extends, you have to extend the watcher has to be extended because he's watching the project.
Right.
So that's at least what I've seen over the many years is if a project gets delayed for whatever reason, the construction management piece always has to get extended because you're still watching.
Right.
Pretty standard.
So I think the contractor ran into delays in completing the point repair between the two manholes that run from Shirley's further back towards the entrance to where Taco Bell is. And so that took longer than anticipated. In addition, there were some delays that were caused by DPW's permitting, allowing them to renew the encroachment permit. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing there, but thanks for that. I think that covers what the substance of the repairs. Very early on, yeah. They cited that they stopped for a week, I think, or so, because one of the positive results, individuals who tested positive were patients uphill at the renal clinic, and they wanted to make sure they had people, so they stopped work. They were able to do that, and then another delay.
And Miguel, the delay is an excusable delay, or is it something that would preclude that the additional construction management be absorbed by the contractor?
There are some delays that are excusable. There will likely be a claim if there hasn't already been one filed, and that will be taken into consideration when we negotiate. And if at the end of the day liquidated damages would apply, then those.
Okay. No further questions on this one. Miguel, the next item?
The next item is Resolution 29 FY 2020, and this is relative to approving the supplemental funds that were received from the 2020 bond and where they're distributed within the CIP. You recall we ended up.
Well, tell them what you projected originally for the bond.
The original estimate for the proceeds of the bond of $134 million in par was about $108 million in construction fund account, and we ended up with 123, so it was an extra 14 million or so, which we weren't anticipating would be placed into the construction. Fortunate for us because the CIP originally called for a much higher revenue-funded component for the first couple of years, and because of the COVID-19 impact, obviously revenues have been impacted, and so we had to adjust before we went out to the bond with our financial statements or financial projections for the POS, and we deferred some of that capital improvement, revenue-funded capital improvement, in order to keep the debt service coverage ratios where they should be. And because we received the extra proceeds into the construction fund, we were able to take care of some of those projects that we had removed the CIP funding. We were also able to increase other line items, additional things for projects that already were bond funded. So we included as Exhibit A a complete listing of original projection totaling the 108 million, and then the distribution with the additional 14 million, showing the total funding, bond funding of so the resolution seeks your approval for this reallocation of the actual proceeds of the bonds, and we will also be making a DC with this distribution and authorize our use of those court order project.
The bond sale was very good for PWA. As usual, it is oversubscribed, I think, by 12 times or 13 times.
22 times.
22 times, I'm sorry. And so, they paid a premium, which gave us more money, and it was really a good issue. I don't know where we're going in the future. Nobody does, but so far we're doing good. And it's a good thing to happen for us because it means more money for projects, Instead of 108, we have 123. $14 more million to put toward this project. Okay? Commissioner Santos. Yes.
For the infrastructure technology improvements, I think permanent disaster recovery center. Also, a portion of the funding was intended to help cover the upgrades. Yeah, no. We don't have the detailed design yet, so we don't have cost estimates yet. The proceeds are proceeds. And it was included in the master plan, so numbers possible will align. The overall 5-year CIP included it as a line item with changing the total numbers.
But this is okay. Okay. No further questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Currently, it's right behind, but the intention was to PWA to build a joint facility. Design currently, and our input, the facility will be constructed partially on property former laboratory.
Yeah, the old lane.
So I just signed.
Yeah.
We just signed both John and I signed off on the A&E contract.
further questions? Miguel, the next one.
So the next one, I'll start off, but I'm gonna ask Chris to assist in presenting. This is a Resolution 30 FY 2020, which is relative to a GPA and GWA offering payment plans for financial hardship due to COVID-19. So we talked about this previously. We wanted to have a uniform policy between the two utilities in terms of offering payment plans to the public, and we each have our limitations by our service rules, but we wanted recommended policy to the board, which we felt was in line with previous discussion on the topic. Chris, you want to do it?
So we've established that we wanted to restart disconnections on July 1st, but in between now and then, we have a joint campaign that we're going to launch to inform people that they need to call us and reach out to set up a payment plan. So anyone who's able to get on a payment plan there'll basically be a stay on their disconnection, and that payment plan would be up to 12 months for residential customers, and the same thing for commercial customers as well, but that would be on a case-by-case basis. So anybody affected by the COVID-19 and they're not able to make their payments will be able to call us up on the residential and get a 6-month payment plan up to 12 months, depending on how far they're behind. And there'll be some analysis done by the customer service reps on both residential and
I was just going to make an observation that I think for the people, a lot of people have been affected by this pandemic. And I think, but in thinking about it, my observation is that the bigger amounts that are owed are amounts that are owed for rent or for mortgage payments. Those are huge amounts. Water amounts, the average water bill I think is about $100 a month. And let's just say 100, use that as a number, $100 a month. In 3 months, that's $300. And so making arrangement plans will not be a big problem, and giving them 12 months is certainly very generous. And GPA may be a little different because their numbers may be a little larger, but still, I think, very manageable. Of course, we want to help in every way we can because that we're not the only ones that they have to pay. We're just us to be simple, but they have their mortgages, their rent, their car loans, and some car loans are more than the power bill, really. Some of these nicer cars, and that's fine. So anyway, I just want to make that observation. But thank you I'm glad that you and GPA and GWA both took the initiative. You're putting together your plan and offering it to the people, and you're coming to us for changes that you may need to your service rules. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm very happy with the decision-making process. Chris, if I understood you right, it's our current policy is 6 months. This is a request to allow you to go to both companies to go to 12 months. It's a case-by-case review, right? But at least from the customer point of view, it'll be interesting to see how many say, no, I only want 3, I don't want 12. I think the chair has accurately described residential. I know with hotels, though, their water bill, absolutely no income coming in. That it may create. It'll be interesting to see what payment plans they might request. We're already witnessing, and I think if I read Collins' report correct, we're already witnessing $1 million a month in lost revenue, primarily from the commercial hotel accounts. Mm-hmm. And my laundry water bill's gone from $10,000 a month to $3,000 a month, but I'd rather have the $10,000 a month because I made money even at $10,000 a month. I ain't making any money at $3,000 a month. We're just cutting my losses, right? But clearly, the commercial side has had a major impact and may need a significant amount of time. I think the challenge for the team will be managing the cash flow, the revenue loss, because who knows how long that $1 million worth of sewer revenue is a month is going to not return. June, what is it, July 1, August 1, when the hotels reopen to the airlines that will be flying, who knows what kind of occupancies they'll be seeing, right? So I guess, I'm sure you're thinking about it already. You're going to worry a little bit about cash flow going forward because of the commercial impact, while you're also helping whoever got impacted with a delayed payment. And it's timely that we had a recent discussion about working capital, how much money you had set aside. We had talked about we almost have 7 months of operating capital stuck in different accounts. And hopefully you don't need every dollar of that 7 months, but it's conceivable that your cash flow for the next 7 to 10 months will be very tight as you grant plans and people start to cover, and you might have to dip into some of those reserves. I'm not worried about coverage, debt service coverage, because I think we're done borrowing money for this year. So I'm not even sure.
We still worry about it.
Yeah, but as long as you cut that one check every month, or every year, or 2 checks, what do we pay the bondholders twice a year? As long as those checks don't bounce, forget coverage. Cash in the bank is far more important than debt service coverage. You can have crappy coverage, but as long as you're current on the payment, they'll complain privately, but they want that money. But it puts pressure on. It puts pressure on you, but you have reserves that will help carry you through whatever the next 12 months look like, 12 to 18 months look like. So I'm encouraged that you feel enough confidence to say, let's try as much as a 12-month time frame to help people with, and that I share a confidence with you that from a cash flow point of view, you should be able to weather it, assuming something crazier doesn't happen. So it's a question of the policy of 6 months. Was that adopted through AAA previously, and or do we need? We don't. This is a temporary change. It doesn't have to go through any kind of AAA process.
So for us, the 6 months is in our service rules.
Right. So I thought that might have gone through AAA, or no? Probably, right?
It did.
Okay.
But the way we're approaching it, the policy is to offer up to 12 months to the 6 months to evaluate
Yeah,
6 months and then
got it. So
issue a new plan, as opposed to hitting them with a balloon payment at 6 months or something like that.
Nothing stops you from issuing a new 6 months. So that avoids the AAA. So I think, it's a wise way to implement it. And I heard you correctly. Just confirm, GPA is going to present to us on Thursday a similar.
Well, this is a joint.
It's the same resolution.
Okay.
The difference is in our service rules versus their requirements, and I think they have an additional PUC
Approval.
requirement that is taken into consideration with the resolution allows either one of us, if we need to, the PUC to pursue whatever modification.
And then I think we had announced earlier to the public, correct me if I'm wrong, you had to have a payment plan in by June 30th. How is that going? Are you seeing people coming in with payment plans? It's sort of, like most things, the week of the 25th, you might see a lot of people coming in. Is our deadline still the hard deadline that Simon has to have a payment plan in place with GWA by June 30th, or Simon could be subject to disconnection in July in the absence of a payment plan? Is that still our approach?
That is the desired approach. So we haven't really launched or announced that you have to have a payment plan in place by July 1st yet. We've been encouraging people to come in and make payments, set up payment plans. We have said that that disconnections were suspended through June 30th, but that's as far as I believe it was described to customers in the media.
And so now, but that has, in effect, with this proposal, that hasn't changed. You still want a payment plan in by June 30th from whoever may need one? Okay, so I guess the only final piece of the puzzle is to make sure between now and the 30th, we're letting the whole world know in as many different forums, mediums as possible to get them in there.
If I can talk a little bit about that. So we have campaign set up where we're going to blast. We'd like to doing that as early as tomorrow. Move forward until
Next
resolution
Tuesday.
is presented to the board. So we're all set. Everything's prepped and ready to go. Just kind of waiting for.
Well, maybe as a suggestion, maybe, you know, I defer to you guys, it's your final call, but, you know, we don't have our meeting till next Tuesday, right? So that's 23rd, right? It's formal then, right? And then you guys got 7 days to beat the drums and make the noise. Maybe you want to extend it to July 15th. You're going to have a payment plan in by July 15th. Gives you a couple of weeks to really beat the drum, or
Start the
depending on
process
how
now.
we think about it, maybe you can play with some wording. I mean, if you need till July 30th, your intent is good, your approach is good. Now the question is, how quickly can we get the information out to folks that no matter how much you bombard them, you're going to have somebody on July 1st going, oh, it was yesterday I had to have the payment plan in, right? So I just throw that out just as an experience, you know, in doing this. I'll defer to you guys. If you want to stay with June 30th, so be it. But I don't hear the tone of the proposal and the approach. I don't hear anybody saying, hey, you know, midnight, June 30th, the world ends for you, Mr. Sanchez or Mr. Customer, if you don't have it in there.
That's not what we're going for.
That's not where you're going. So I'm confident that, you know, at some point you got to pick a date. No matter what date you pick, you're going to have somebody the day after that day go, oh, was yesterday the deadline? And, you know, so just do your best. But I'm very appreciative of, I think you've captured the concern and intent of the commission at our level to work very hard, despite some of your own cash flow challenges, to help that customer eventually be able to pay their bill. You know, we'll be in the right place eventually. I think that's good. I'm more worried about hotels and laundries not paying you what they used to. It's going to be a while. But if I sort of cheating, but read the cover sheet for calling, you know, you've also reduced spending, fit into your slimmer budget pan. You may be the only organization or entity that has slimmer pants 4 months after the crisis. Most of us have had to let out. Just mostly been eating, but maybe not drinking water. So, okay, but very good. I'm very happy, Mr.
You know,
Management has designed what they have.
you know, I know Commissioner Sanchez is very keen always about trying to keep our ratepayers informed as much as possible. I think there's no reason why you can't talk about the fact that you've got a proposal before the commission right now and get that word out and say, you know, it'll be taken up at the meeting and you can elaborate on your proposal so that people can start tuning into that date of June 30th. My thought is that I'd like them to tune into the date June 30th, and you know, we're going to be reasonable, and if somebody doesn't quite make June 30th, I don't think the world's going to end. But you want, as Commissioner Sanchez has said, somebody's always going to wake up on July 1st and say, what? Yesterday? You know, no matter what date you pick. You could pick July 15. July 16, they're going to say, what? It was yesterday? But it's always good to start talking about it, and you've given us a proposal. It's a joint proposal between both GWA and GPA, so you guys can start talking. Say, we've put this before our CCU, and, you know, this is what we're thinking, so people can start thinking about it. And we can deal with it at the meeting. We might change the date or whatever, but anyway, that's the thought. Commissioner Limchaco.
So, Mr. Chair, are you suggesting that the utilities communicate this prior to the CCU meeting?
Yeah, that they communicate what they've put before the commission.
Let them people know this
What-
is on our agenda.
Just
So I'm assuming then we're all in agreement that this is something that we'll positively address at our, because, you know,
Well-
you don't want to do it and then it's
yeah,
not
no,
happen, so-
I think as Commissioner Sanchez has elaborated, I think we've been expressing some thoughts over these past, you know, they've brought us up to date how we're doing, and we've always said, hey, we got to take care of the ratepayer, and I think, as Commissioner Sanchez said, this is certainly a good step. The only key is, you know, everybody's going to say June 30th and July 1st, wake up and say, what?
It's only 2 weeks away.
So,
We gotta get the information out.
I'm just going on what, Commissioner Sanchez, did you want to?
Well, I mean, I think in the spirit, so far I haven't heard anybody object to June 30th, so I think in the spirit of what we're talking about, unless there's an objection, having a press release and social media go out this week that management has proposed this to the CCU, and it will take it up at their next date,
June
meeting.
23rd meeting.
That, you know, with PR, I mean, you say it again, so you're telegraphing, because you're not seeing 5 heads go, you know, June 30th, what? So you could say management, this week you would say management has proposed this plan.
At the request of the CCU.
And you can say this model similar request, but the main thing is to get that date out there as fast as you can. You know, the approval is expected next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, you get to issue another press release saying the CCU approved the plan.
Yeah.
And it'll say, but you know, you start talking about it earlier rather than later. I don't think, I know I won't be calling anyone in management if I see information released by either utility this week saying there is, that both utilities have proposed a June 30 deadline to register a payment plan, and that the payment plans could be as long as 12 months, but you must have a plan in place by June 30th. Just to maximize the amount of time that you're getting the information out. If you wait another week, then, you know, that's when I thought of July 15th as an alternative, right? The idea is just to give enough time before a deadline to get information to people so they can.
Plus, there's another reason. Chris, we did a previous release, right?
Yes.
Talk about extending the.
Yeah, and I think
Suspension of
you went on the
disconnection.
radio, I went on the radio, I said, this is what we're asking them to look at. You guys have ended up doing exactly what you said you would do, and so we're just no one, if I'm hearing my colleagues correct, no one is going to object that you begin to communicate with the public, even if it's this week, you're simply saying, management has proposed this to the CCU.
Commissioner Santos?
Weeks ago, you guys voted on the reactor work session.
Yeah.
You were asking, so what's the difference if we make a resolution? Motion now to adopt this resolution?
Is it on the agenda? Is it on the agenda?
It's on this agenda, it's a working session. The only thing is GPA is not here. I don't think they'd object. This,
Is the resolution available? Is it ready?
yes, it's right
The
here.
one in the,
It's in the thing.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I just want to ask a question.
President said, Mr.
No, I'm with you. I just want to make sure, because I had suggested that the general manager GPA should have been here at this meeting too, but he,
Representatives behind you.
and it's a joint resolution.
and it's a
anyway.
joint resolution, so I don't have a problem with that, right?
Move to approve it.
Council, is there any reason we couldn't approve it right now?
No, it's on the agenda.
Well, wasn't it on the agenda announced for the work session?
It's,
Well, right now, the way it
But-
reads, council's issues. Oh, well, but the way it reads, correct me, from on our board books, is issues for decision. So I'm with Commissioner Santos. Why can't we make that decision today versus next Tuesday? Is there a legal reason you can think of? Here. I mean, it's listed as issues for
it's
decision.
for decision.
On board books, but on the agenda, on the the notice, the agenda notice, is it properly listed?
Yeah, issues for decision. This is what went out.
Yeah.
The resolution's
Yeah.
listed, yeah. And it's listed as issues for decision. It's just that usually we
And I think the risk of someone running to court saying, please stop the CCU from, they violated.
okay, so,
But this is what I was gonna.
okay, just a minute, Commissioner Taco.
Yeah, but this is what I was gonna comment. I like the fact that Commissioner Santos is recommending that we do it now, because I don't want us to get into precedent about, issuing press releases about something we haven't acted on. So I like that. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think,
Eliminate
to eliminate
So I
and
think we can do
act on it
this.
now.
I think we can do this. We've done it before. And the-
Motion to approve.
Council? What do you think? Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
And
the only difference, what we did also with the LEAC is we had the minutes typed up that we are going to approve. So for that working session, we're going to approve those minutes, to approve the adoption of what we adopted. As opposed to usually working sessions, we don't approve the minutes.
Yeah, but
Okay,
in this
but-
case,
but we're going to
we
do
don't
it.
have to send the minutes to anybody, it's us. We're making our
Yeah,
own.
no, but what I mean is they'll also be written up for our approval. So the minutes of this working session will be approved. So that's how we've handled it.
Motion's
in
in
the
order.
past. Commissioner Guthards,
Yes, I make motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the resolution, the FYT, regarding the payment plans for customers financial hardship during the virus.
okay, is there a second?
May I request that you also include GPA Resolution 2020-15
Yes.
in your motion?
So moved.
Okay. So now it's for both the GPA and the GWA resolution. Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner.
Second to the amended motion.
He supports, okay. Okay.
By
Thank
the
you.
way, this move, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is very important
Even if you
because
didn't.
this will hopefully
Okay.
discourage some of the senators from playing around.
What?
It will create a non-necessity from the legislature.
Yeah, we don't think. Okay. Any further
They
discussion?
got enough headaches.
Yeah, they have enough.
You'll
sense.
figure a way out.
Okay.
They got
So,
enough. They're not gonna care.
Anyway, if there's no further
This is one I was
discussion,
running from.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Unanimous? All
Great.
five? Yeah. Thank you.
So it's still June 30th, right,
yeah.
for payment plan?
Right.
And then the plans are case-by-case basis. And management has the discretion to extend the payment periods in 6-month increments, not to exceed 12 months.
That does it for the issues for decision. GM's,
I have the GM report ready, sir, if you,
okay.
the board cares to
You
go through
want
it.
to give us the highlights or?
Sure. I can-
And because that way it gives us the time to review the GM report and we can ask you more questions at Tuesday nights if we see any more questions. Give us the highlights.
Okay, so the first up would be the, just to close out the discussion and information on the Series 2020A new money bond issuance of 134 million in par. Final maturity January 1st, 2050. We maintained our ratings of A- with Standard & Poor's with a stable outlook, and maintained the same rating with Moody's, but they gave us a negative outlook based on the overall condition and creditworthiness of the government of Guam. As we mentioned, the construction fund deposit was higher than we anticipated at 123,590,000 and change. Sale date was on May 28th with final closing on June 4th. Just some highlights on the market conditions. It was closed, municipal bond market was closed for several weeks with the onset of the pandemic. And there were some bonds issued, new money issuances in April, but they were all for AA rated credit or higher. Very limited issuances for anything below an A category, but we did press forward with it. We did significant marketing efforts with an early announcement on the EMA, public announcement, so that the investors were notified of the potential transaction. We did a lot of POS posting marketing to get the color of the market, and then extensive one-on-one calls with over 14 investor calls done over the course of a few days, along with the recorded roadshow presentation, which had, I think, 100 different views from major investors. So there was strong demand with pricing. Orders came in at 2.9 billion, almost 3 billion. That was 22 times oversubscribed, which for us was a record. And we were able to achieve 4.59% all-in TIC which was about 90 basis points lower than the most recent secondary market trade prior to the sale date. So it was very successful in the offering. We had in 12 of the 14 investors we reached out to actually invested, and the 2 that did not do so because of, they didn't place orders not because of our credit, but because the pricing, the yields weren't as high as they wanted. So with the lower interest rates, they dropped out, but everyone else still purchased. So we had several investors who wanted to buy the whole 134 million in par. Obviously that didn't happen, but I think it created such a demand that there was secondary market trading of GWA paper after this deal concluded. So that was another strong showing, and we're hopeful that that will also be a sign for us to do the refunding when the market conditions still have authorization and potential to save money for debt service if we do the refunding of 2030. Something that's still monitoring.
Or later this year, perhaps,
Yeah.
depending on the market.
So that was the main highlight. You can see that on the next slide, we were able to bring down the all-in TIC from where we started, nearly 40 basis points. Prior to this, when we posted the POS, we thought we were going to be at 4.96. We ended up at 4.59, so that was good, which resulted from the time that we started with the POS posting, the projection had gone from 108 to 115 million, and then we ended up at 124 as demand for the bonds increased. And then the graph on the right just shows you the secondary market trade. Late March was at 5%, I think, right before we posted the POS, but had been as high as 6% previously. So ended up doing really well considering. In terms of the highlights for operations, our production remains fairly steady, 39.4 MGD on average total in production for the month, with 90 for May, 94 wells operational and 9 on standby out of the 120. 2 on Maui well, we stayed steady at about 1 MGD of production. For our water distribution pump stations, 98.2% operability. We're maintaining high operability there, so that's good. We did see some decline in reservoir storage levels as the month ended and coming into June. I think we're just coming out of that. We have had some issues with keeping Gigo and Santa Rosa filled. We've had a lot of wells that have been affected by the frequent tripping on some of the circuits, so that's been causing us a little bit of a headache, but we're managing to keep the reservoir levels sufficient with no major customers. On the wastewater collection side, we're a bit of a dip after that nice recovery in pump station operability. We're at 89.5%, which is still an improvement over just 6 months ago. On the wastewater treatment side, for the month of May, we had about 1.5 million pounds of sludge disposed at a cost of $137,000. You can see the numbers are still fairly low. It'd be interesting now that we've completed the Northern District sewer interceptor, whether that is going to have a material effect as we enter the rainy season on the volumes of water that we're seeing in the plant. So we're setting up, try and track that and show some improvement there. Our asset management system continues to perform well, and all operational divisions are making improvements in their completion ratios. So we are in terms of distribution, corrective maintenance at 38% and preventive maintenance at 62%, with 88% completion on both of those types. Moving to meters real quickly, the numbers really haven't changed. We're covering right around 400 meters that still need to be changed out, and as I mentioned, we were waiting on delivery of these the integrals where the transmitting unit is integral to the meter body itself. Those finally came in, so it's those meters and then some difficult installations that would require a little bit more work. We've not undertaken those yet, but that's all that's remaining. Very far along there. In terms of backbilled accounts, through May, we have 1,875 accounts backbilled to about 500,000. So if this trend finishes at about 1 million in back. We've not issued or pressed any of the back billings right now. We're having a discussion on that because of the financial hardship created by COVID-19. We're kind of walking that a little gingerly, but we do still to issue the back so that timelines that we set for ourselves in terms of processing of those. We're trying to strategize on the best way to do that.
Commissioner
I
Sanchez.
mean, maybe you could just look around, since you're doing a payment plan anyway, maybe roll some of those back billings into that. I mean, as long as you have a plan for.
We're talking about putting a flyer, instead of sending a bill that has that full amount, kind of putting some additional information in the letter that goes out. So to start off by saying.
Yeah, and that'll ease a lot of the umbrage, because nobody likes to see the back bill. We know that it's correct to do it, but if you're going to give them time.
Roll it in.
Ease the, I think. A little.
Okay.
Moving on the One Guam side, we are, for Tuma Maui, increasing or coming to an agreement with the Navy on more robust quarterly reporting for the inspections. They want it to be a bit more formal moving forward. At the last meeting, they indicated that the Navy on the top is making a decision to go with longer terms, so before we were getting annual license in Maui, that may be a 5-year thing as opposed to just a 1-year thing. So
Great.
that is changing. We're not sure how it's going to affect the conditions or anything else at this point, and so we're a little bit.
Tell them to deed it over. Just tell them to deed it over. You don't
a little
need
bit at a time.
You don't need an agreement. I mean, what do you need to prove? We're doing it.
Tuma Maui still at the top of the list, and the property transfers in the middle of the list. They haven't merged the two yet, but we're working in that direction.
Okay, then just ask for a 100-year lease agreement.
License agreement. License.
On the OEA projects, as I mentioned, the interceptors, all the lining work is done. The lining crew has left island, so it's just a couple of manholes I think that they're still working on, and then that project will be closing out early and under budget. So very successfully executed project. The one that is simplest project that has taken the longest to get the NEPA documentation done, we finally got the FONSI signed by OEA earlier this week. So now we can move forward with doing those projects outfit, and the packages are prepared. They should be advertised, I think, this week. With bid submission sometime in July for both packages, one for new wells and rehabilitations on the base and one for rehabilitations off. There are a couple of property transfers that are being considered. Nothing has been finalized yet. One has a cloud on the title. So we've been asked if we're willing to accept. And this is a monitoring well site outside the base. We're being asked if we want to accept it with the cloud on the title. We're researching that now. We have not come up with any recommendation. And then DOD has had a easement with us for a property that we have down south overlooking Seti Bay, which was slated for a tank or may have been a former tank site, but part of the property that was transferred to DOEA from DOAG with the deed from GovGuam, and that they needed that property, or they needed use of that property for a reforestation project to prevent damage to coral reefs as a mitigation for damage that the Navy caused constructing Kilo Wharf. They're asking to extend that another 10 years, and we are currently looking at all the requirements and evaluating whether there might be any other implications in terms of liability that we want see addressed in whatever agreement we come up with, allowing them to. And there's one other item, the potential OEA grant for community infrastructure pilot program. We're looking if we have any projects that are shovel-ready and can be part of this program, which would provide some direct benefit to the base. And if the installation commander supports it, there's a good we can get grant. So we're evaluating that right now to see if we qualify.
Do you have an idea roughly how much might be available, or really?
I know, I don't have the information, but I thought I saw a number, total amount nationwide, but I don't remember. No change in status on our court order projects. We still have one project remaining, the reservoir project. We don't, until we get PUC approval to use the funding, we'll develop final estimate on how long it's going to take us to finish, and then we can go to the late reasons why we're late. That remains. And I think there is no change in our land acquisition summary. Big repairs are still holding them below 20. I think end of day total yesterday was.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Yeah, just two quick questions, Miguel. Thank you. The informing of the court latest timeline in terms of being, quote, late. What are we talking about? 6 months, a year, year and a half?
We're talking at least a year, potentially.
On the remaining projects that were.
On the remaining reservoir.
And I recall that the reservoir projects were purposely put at the end of the court order back in 03 and 11 because they were the ones that were the most difficult to project that far ahead, to today, right? And they were purposely put at the end for those were some of the main reasons, not the only reasons, but because the other ones were far more easy to predict. So, but you never know. Of course, it's up to the judges, but judge, being able to tell them that an effort that started in 2003 that was supposed to be done in 2020 is only going to take. I think they'll consider that still a victory, and I don't think they have any interest in penalizing the people of Guam per se for being 5% off on a 20-year. But hopefully, you never know. And then I only had one other question. That was showing my age. We were talking order. Yeah, I'll wait till Tuesday if I don't.
Yeah, you have to.
Just triggered one. Okay, I'll wait till Tuesday. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, PUC. Can you summarize what's going on with the PUC? You're having your desire to upgrade our internal systems, right? Is running into some turbulence at the PUC. Can you just summarize the latest events at the PUC? I think you got a reconsideration or something?
The latest event was a non-event.
Right, other than to reconsider, right?
So when we originally went in, there was agreement, the measure, there was a majority in support of our petition, but it didn't have
the petition to purchase.
Petition to move to E1 and purchase the new accounting system. So
Endorse.
There were the two nay votes, yeah.
No, Pete endorsed the public hearing. But they didn't have, a member was missing, right? So they didn't have.
There were a couple members that were missing, so it was.
Well, that's why I asked for the summary. I've heard versions of it from the PUC member that supported it. I wanted to hear, yes. I wanted to hear management's perception of what the.
She was concerned that the system that we had was old, and the system that we picked was the same company as the old system, and the use of the sole source procurement. So we filed a supplement which included a previous study that was done, feasibility study that was done for both GPA and GWA, which cited all the other major manufacturers or vendors that she also cited in her opposition to the motion, to the petition, and that feasibility study, which was done by SAIC, indicated that the best course of action was to move forward with upgrading the existing JDE product, going with the same vendor. You could get the same functionality from another one, but there's a steeper learning curve and additional expense and licensing and so on. So it was justified. That supplement should have taken care of any concerns, that, at least the concerns that we understood her to raise at the first UC meeting. But we filed the supplement. However, on their end, there was an administrative error in recording supplement and distributing it on the docket. And therefore, she raised the concern just prior to the meeting where we were scheduled to vote that she didn't think it should be on the agenda, and so because of their administrative error, it was yanked. Didn't get heard.
Will it be delayed till this month's PUC meeting?
Yes.
The recommendation was to take it up at this month's PUC meeting. Commissioner Chaco.
Mr. Chair, I recalled actually asking you about the sole source. We discussed that. So does the PUC, do they have knowledge of the discussion that the CCU used in order to arrive at their decision? Because I would think that that would aid them, because we're asking the same questions, and some of the answers that we're getting in those meetings could help them, clear up whatever concerns that they have.
I believe, so we did mention that the issue was vetted with the CCU, and that that came up, and the ALJ also in his report referenced the CCU resolution and the fact that he looked at it and looked at the statute and found that it was appropriate and in order, and recommended it as such. As the way she phrased it, I believe, was as if former API had a problem with. That was it. I don't think the basis of her decision was necessarily on the CCU's deliberations or the ALJ's conclusions. It was just more philosophical.
Well, I agree with her that we should question sole source procurement, but there was an adequate explanation given on the cost benefit of why it's sole source, and so that was the question: is do they have that information? Yes. They do. Okay. All right.
And I think the supplemental filing that we made also reinforced that. Hopefully, we have no issues. I mean, she may still vote no, but I think the other will attend. To my knowledge, have not experienced.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Helen, you have something you want to tell us? Highlights.
So, right, so I also have a few slides, similar to what we looked at last month. The first slide takes a look at overall revenues and demand. So the scale for the two charts aren't exactly the same. And I'll take care of that before the CEC meeting. So revenue, demand for May has bounced back a little bit. It was 446 in March, and it's up to 465 in May. However, revenues on the wastewater side haven't recovered as well as water, because the commercial, as Simon had mentioned, where the commercial demand is down. The next slide takes a look at overall revenues and collections, and our collections have rebounded in the last month, although revenues are still lower than in the past. So we were at, in April we were at 8.1, and May we're at 8.2 million. The second chart takes a look at aging by rate class, And so what we've tried to do here is show month to month how we're doing with regard to our counts that are current, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90 days, 90 to 120 days, and over 120 days. So the over 120 days are staying right about 20%. It creeped up to 23% in May. And then I broke it down also by the different classes. Residential revenues, our collections went up to 105%. I think that's basically due to the stimulus checks that have been coming in. And then hotel revenues. We went from 2.3 million in January down to 1.2 in May. But our collection rates are still high. We were at 120%. For government?
Our favorite customer. How's our favorite
Yeah,
customer?
revenues for May actually are better. I mean, the collection for May is actually better than April. We were at 90%. So I did call DOE earlier. They said they would make a payment this week, so I'll follow that. I don't know about it in full. Yeah, but that's not, I don't know that he could use it for utilities, but. Okay. That's true, and disinfectant, right? Hygienic, right, yes.
You have 4 different superintendents here. 5 different superintendents here.
Okay, looking at commercial one includes bars without dining facilities, car washes, department and retail stores, hospitals, laundromats. Revenues were at 1 million in January and are they've stayed about the same over this period. They're at 1.07 for May. Although we've seen the collection over revenues drop. At May, they were at 89%. And then looking at commercial two are the laundries. There's only 21 accounts and only 3% of revenues. They went from 253,000 in January down to 99,000 in May. And our collection rate is at 56%.
What? I'm paying every month. Close those other laundries down. Otherwise, I want to go to 50%.
For commercial 3, this includes bakeries, markets with garbage disposals, and restaurants. Revenues for May were about half of what it was in January. And we're seeing, although we're seeing collections, they were at 130% in May. Yeah. And this is just a snapshot of our revenues compared to our expenses over the fiscal year. And then I think the last slide is the financial indicators, which is also included in the highlight at the front of the financial statement. As Simon said, we still have strong cash reserves. We're at 298 days. And we are monitoring our debt service coverage ratio.
Commissioner Sanchez, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, actually, perfect. That's last slide, which is on page 87 of our board book. You know, overall, very good, and thank you, Tolling, for the format, a little bit longer narratives than your predecessors, and it seems to, I know it always tackles the main issues that I look at, but when I look at this snapshot on page 87, you can see, our coverage is hovering right around the 125. what is there, and then when do you cut the checks? December and June? Is that when you do it? Okay. January and July, but you have no trouble, like, from your cash position, you're gonna have no trouble making, what is our annual debt service on all of our? 3 to 4, no, 34, yeah, I knew it was a big number. It's a big number, 34 million. So, and you pay half in January and half in July. And then I mean, I was pleasantly surprised that the collection ratios have remained relatively strong, but I think it's because folks got some money. See your May to April change. And your accounts receivable days isn't terrible. Your target is 45, and you're just 5 days above that. One thing I did notice is your days payable, you're actually ahead of your target. Well, so if you need cash, one source is pay people slower, right? So, but I think you know all those tricks, right? But overall, I thank you we're hanging in there. We're still making some, what I would call profits. And if you can on Tuesday, just get those slides into this. Otherwise, it's we're hanging tough as a utility, and we're protecting the ratepayer money, and we can weather these very difficult times at this point. So from there, our next rate adjustment is October of this calendar year, or a year from now? Sorry? This calendar year. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. No, you got time. You got time for that. At least you're set for the next 18 months. You did the analyses that they've requested, and we'll see where that takes. Okay. Great. That's it, Mr. Thank you.
If that wraps up everything today, motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.
Very good.
Great job, everybody. Great job. Easy to do good things quickly.